Hello and welcome to Building High Performance Cultures. This is a weekly series where we talk to exceptional executives from top organizations on how they've built high performance cultures and how they're using culture as competitive advantage. I'm Marty Parker, the President and CEO of Waterstone Human Capital, and my guest today is the President and CEO of Longo Fruit Markets, Longo Brothers Fruit Markets, Anthony Longo. Now, for those of you who don't know, Anthony has been the CEO, I think, since 1998, Anthony?
That's right, yeah.
Yep, so a few years now. You must have been 11 or 12 when you took the role. He's been a recipient of the Retail Council Lifetime Achievement Award, which is an incredible achievement. In 2018, Longos was a winner of Canada's Most Admired Corporate Cultures. And this past year, in 2019, Anthony was a winner of Canada's Most Admired Chief CEO in the enterprise category. So we have an exceptional leader who leads an incredible organization. And Anthony, thank you for joining us on this episode.
You're welcome, Marty. I appreciate you reaching out to me, and I'm happy to be part of the program.
Awesome. Well, many people on the episode will be familiar with Longo's story, but for those who aren't, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your family and how Longo's Brothers Fruit Markets came to be.
Sure. So we started in 1956. It was my father, Tom, and his brothers, Joe and Gus, and they came here from Sicily back in, I guess, 1949. And the three of them really, again, started the business. Dad was 21 years old, I guess, when he first started, and it was really all about helping to provide for their families and help them have a better life for them and for their communities. And it quickly evolved into better life for team members and all the people, all the communities that are around them.
It's 1956. That's a few years ago. And there's, from a Canadian perspective, that's considered a legacy type business now.
Yes, yeah.
Speaking of family, Anthony, treating you like family is really at the cornerstone of your culture. Yep. Maybe you can describe the culture at Longos with that kind of framing it, and how maybe the culture's changed over time, and perhaps what's remained the same.
Yeah, so for us, the DNA is really about treating you like family, and that encompasses a few things. So one is when you think about making decisions with your heart and with your head. So as you step back and you say, well, what's the right thing for our team members? What's the right thing for our guests? What's the right thing for our community? And living that every day. So my dad had a saying. He said, always do the right thing, especially when no one is looking. And that really kind of embodies how we make decisions.
So as a leader, and I know as a leader, it's especially trying and important in times like these. But how do you see your role, or how have you seen it, in building and maintaining or changing the Longos culture? And how does it kind of look like in practice on a day-to-day basis at Longos?
Yeah, I think as leaders, we have a responsibility to live it every day in terms of how we want people to behave in our business, and just who we are from an authentic standpoint. So I think if we don't lead by example, how the heck can we ever expect our teams to do the things that we'd like them to be doing in keeping with our culture. So for us, that means again, I'll just go back to COVID because it's been such an incredible learning experience for all of us. Our whole team was all hands on deck when everything hit, and we were out, filling shelves in the stores. We had people in our call center taking orders for our Grocery Gateway online business. People that hadn't done it before, but you quickly jump in and you learn. And that's leading by example. It's doing what needs to be done every day, and letting the team know that you're there with them and supporting them in any way that you possibly can, and that they're the number one thing on our mind is their safety and continuing to just appreciate the incredible work that they do, whether it's in COVID times or most importantly in non-COVID times too, because fortunately we're not in these kinds of crisis situations every day. At least I don't want to go through this very often. But it's leading by example every day. And as I've said to many people over time, your culture will either shape you or you'll shape your culture. You shape your culture by making the decisions and the actions and all the things you do that support who you are as an organization and as people.
One of the challenges in your business, in a retail business, and what have you've opened six or so stores in the last few, seven stores in the last few years? Would that be right?
Yeah, about right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
about three. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you continue to maintain and build on this cohesive treat you like family culture when you have multiple shifts, multiple locations, part-time, full-time employees, direct business, retail business, students, retirees? I mean,
Mm.
it's about as complex as you can get. So how do you find the links to this cultural thread that pulls them all together?
I think it comes back to leadership, and being consistent with your messaging. So for us, it starts with orientation. Well, actually, it starts before that. It starts when you hire the person. So you want to make sure you've got people who are personable and want to be in our industry looking after guests. So that's where it really starts, and then through orientation, and all the way through to performance appraisals. So in our case, our key values are part of the performance reviews that we do, and ensuring that people live those behaviors every day. So it's all of that, and modeling it is so critical. You can't say one thing and do another and expect people to actually follow you. They'll just they'll just say you're hypocritical, and that destroys cultures faster than anything. So it's just being consistent for sure is going to be is really critical across the entire business, every channel of the business.
Well, I know, thank you, Anthony. I know you've also been super committed, let's say the least, on training and education. Again, one thing to deal with at a head office
Mm.
level. It's another thing when you've got people in the field and taking them out of it. But talk about your training and development, your college program, your master coach program, and why they're so important to aligning people to who you are.
Sure. Well, I think right from the basics, it's giving people the confidence to do their jobs is really critical. Whether it's in our grocery stores or in our support center or distribution centers or our online business, when you give proper coaching and proper training in terms of the roles that people have, it just builds that confidence, and people just feel better about the jobs that they're doing every day. For us, you mentioned Longos College, which is an interesting one that we did. We started that back in the late '90s, I guess. We partnered with Humber College and created a department manager training program, which is what it's evolved to. And that's been really successful in taking our what we call our high potential team members and working with them to put them through a department manager program. We also have an assistant store manager program and a store manager program. Again, these are all about helping people be the best they can be. That's really what, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Is how do you get the most? How do you help people kind of figure out what their gifts are and highlight those gifts so that they can be the best that they can be for their lives and for their families. And our master coach program has been a great one as well. We did that, I guess, a couple of years ago now, and I think coaching is so critical that if you're going to develop the next level of managers to become leaders, you really need a good coaching program and being able to have everything related back to how can I help this person be the best they can be? How do we ensure that they can see? And when you hold up a mirror to them to say, well, here's some suggestions, and here's some questions around, is this one of my favorite questions in coaching are the best years ahead of you or behind you? Is your best work ahead of you or behind you? That's how
Hmm.
it went. When I was first asked that by my coach, it stopped me in my tracks, and I had to think about it. But those are the kinds of questions that make you think beyond the moment, and it makes you think about what legacy do you want to leave in this world? What are the things that you want to be doing, and what are the action steps you need to take to get there? And that'll help people be the best they can be and bring out those gifts that they've got.
Speaking of legacy, as a family founded and a family, you have professional management all around
Mhm.
you. I know I've
Yeah.
met a number of them, and it's an important part. But so is being a family founded business. And so, what are some of the challenges family founded, not funded, but both
Funded too, yeah.
are facing today? And really, what does legacy mean at Longos?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So for us, we have a family purpose statement, and what it relates to is it says, for our love of family and passion for food, our role and that we believe in society is to provide hope and inspiration to others, so we can leave the world a better place. That's in essence what we're trying to do,
Mm,
whether it's part of our business or part of the foundation, or anything that we invest in. So that's kind of the driver for us is how do we help people, have some hope and have inspiration, and how do we help leave the world a better place? It sounds like we debated that a lot in the family. We set that out about 12 years ago, I guess it is 11 or 12 years ago, and we debated, is that too lofty to go help make the world a better place? But if we can help, a few hundred people in our communities, that helps make the world a better place. If it's a few thousand, if it's tens of thousands, if it's hundreds of thousands, I think every action that we all take as human beings can help provide for someone else's life to be just a little bit better. How do we leave it a little bit better? So I think everyone can definitely play that role.
Was that a big part of the forming and ongoing work of the Longos Family kind of Charitable Foundation?
It is absolutely. So some of the things we invest in through the foundation is based on that. How do we help our communities be better? How do we provide some inspiration? So sometimes we'll put out a financial goal to say we'll match up to a certain amount, and that's to engage the rest of the community, to bring people in, to help them see what the possibilities are when people get together for a common cause.
Yeah. Well, and I know we're not talking about it, but you do a lot of work underneath that, and I know
Thanks.
in the business as well. It's exceptional. It's been 22 years. You've been the CEO
Hmm.
of this great family, I would say, business. There's a lot of purpose, obviously, an exceptional culture. Looking back, Anthony, this is always a difficult question, I know, but looking back, is there anything specifically you did different?
What would I do different? That's a great question. I'd say I'd probably lean harder on making change in our industry. I'd probably lean a little bit harder, lean in more on that, lean a little harder on it, and just be more overt. Uh, is part of it. And the other thing I'd say is, we've done, I believe, a lot in our industry in terms of the things we've worked in our community on, or the way we've worked with different partners, or how we've dealt with our team members in terms of training, etc. I think, if I had to do it again, I'd probably be more overt about it, be more public about it, as opposed to because we've been a pretty humble and quiet company to some extent. But I do think that my philosophy's changed over the years, in that I think if you share some of the things you're doing for your team, some of the things you're doing for your community, it may inspire other entrepreneurs or other family member or other family businesses to do something different. I'm not suggesting by any stretch at all that we're perfect, because we're not. I mean, we have a lot of warts, there's no question. But I think that if we could share the things that we're proud of and the things that we've done in the community and with our team members more readily and more often, it may inspire others to do similar, so that we have the power of more people working on the good of the community and the good of people.
Very interesting. Thank you for that. It's a tough question, I know,
Yeah.
uh, eh, but but I appreciate you answering it so openly. What do you see in term when we look at it? What do you see is going to be critical to align your people and culture, attracting new talent, continuing to build a high performance culture in what we don't even know what it looks like yet, but this new normal
Right.
that we will come out, we will prevail, we're going to beat the odds. This virus, and probably be so much better for it. But what do you see as going to be critical in terms of the Longos future?
I think for all companies, not just Longs, but I think for everyone, we have to continue to be just more authentic and just be who we are, keep things real. Really be clear on your North Star, what you're here for, what's your purpose. I think that's really important. And then the other one, when it comes to this, this particular issue that we're dealing with, is transparency is so critical. And I think the team appreciates the daily update that we provide. I think they appreciate the letters that we provide to our team members and to our customers when we've had positive cases. And it's just being authentic and transparent. And yes, there will be people, and there has been people that have taken shots at us when we've been transparent. But I don't regret being transparent. I think it's the right thing to do. And you take your lumps when if people want to throw stones at you.
Sure.
But 99% of the people that we've spoken to or that have received letters from us letting them know that there's an issue in a store have thanked us for being open and transparent, and that enables long-term trust. And I think it enables long-term trust amongst our team members too, because I think they appreciate that we're being forthright, and we're treating everybody like adults. Right? Here's the issue. Here's what we have to deal with, and let's get together and make the changes we need to make and take care of team members and guests.
This may not be necessarily related to what we're dealing with now, but what trends do you foresee coming in terms of the elements of building high performance culture? I mean, authenticity,
Mhm.
openness, lots of communication, that's clear. I wonder though if that hasn't been something you've been fairly strong. You're going to get, your strengths are going to show in times of challenge, and your weaknesses are going to show too.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
sometimes they're even the same thing. But what do you see as trends in the future in terms of being critical to being at the cutting edge of high performance?
Answering the question of why you exist is really, really important. If it's just to get a certain ROIC and here's my return on invested capital, well, it's pretty hard to rally troops against that and to jump out of bed for an ROIC number. So it's about I think it's comes back to what's the overall purpose. So in grocery as an example, I mean, if people haven't seen it yet, I'm sure they're living it. Is that we're an essential service, and I was so proud when our teams are seeing that now. They're not just stock people. They're not people just cashiers. These are people that are feeding Canadians, right? That's what we do every day with nutritious foods in a healthy atmosphere, clean atmosphere, and hopefully they have good experiences and it brings families together. Food brings families together. So it's really understanding what's your why, and if you don't have a handle on what your why is, then there's going to be an issue there. I always like to ask the question, and I've asked myself this question over the years: is if Longos disappeared tomorrow, who would care and why? Right? Because if the answer is nobody would care, they just go to the next food store, then we've got a problem, right? We have a competitive issue, and we need to figure out how to differentiate ourselves. So I think if every business asked themselves that question, if we disappeared tomorrow, who would care and why? I think that helps them understand if they're truly if they truly have a core purpose that they can rally their team around.
Yeah, no, that makes great sense. And again, talked about what you do differently. We talked about what you think is important for the future. But if there were if you were going to give someone advice who was looking kind of to start their journey to building kind of a differentiated type high performance business, um, and they could be private, they could be in a non-for-profit, they could be from a family environment, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
I keep going back to purpose. So what's your purpose? Be clear on that. What are your values that you're going to live by? And what is it that you're trying to achieve in this world that's not being achieved today? So when you think about some of the big names that have really done that, you think about Bill Gates when he said many years ago he wants to put a PC on every desk in every classroom around the world. And now they're not PCs on desks; they're phones in our hands. So Steve Jobs took it even further. But if you don't have people like that had or have just tremendous amount of foresight and purpose, that at the time a lot of people might have laughed and said that, well, that's crazy, that'll never happen. But it happened because they were so determined, they had a purpose about how they were going to do it. Or Google, organizing the world's data. So now you think about it, everyone just says when you want to know something, you go to Google. So it's really being clear on what your purpose is, what you're trying to achieve.
Hmm. Well, that's clear, and thank you. I mean, I think authenticity, the North Star, and purpose are clear, but um, asking yourself if your best years are ahead of you. Well,
Yeah.
if you're asking yourself that question, I'm going to provide a possible answer, which I think for Longos and I think for Anthony Longo, the best years are ahead. I think
Thank you.
um, you see through a crisis the true nature of people and, frankly, organizations.
Mm.
And this is exceptional. How this organization is operating day to day with its customers. So we thank you for that. We thank you for taking your roles as an essential service so seriously in terms of the health of people in Ontario, and the markets you serve. And I can say I agree. When we figured that we were about building high performance cultures as our purpose, everything else that we did kind of changed,
Yeah.
or evolved. And it allows us to look at a lens in terms of, are we doing a good enough job of that on a regular basis? And maybe we all have people like Simon Sinek to thank for his commitment to popularizing why purpose is important. But I want to thank you in terms of your absolute great openness, authenticity, and sharing with us today. And I'll just close by saying thank you sincerely, and thank you to everyone at Longo Brothers Fruit Markets. And I would ask that for those of you listening, join us next week for another episode of Building High Performance Cultures. And in the meantime, if you want to learn more about the topic, Bill, please visit waterstonehc.com. And here's wishing that your futures are bigger than your past.